Here we go. So on this question, we're trying to solve x squared minus 8 equals 0. Let me bring it down here. X squared minus 8 equals 0. Well, basically, whenever you have, we've done some x squared stuff, but what's new here is when you have x squared and no x to the first power. That's what we're talking about here. We just have x squared and then numbers. In other words, we don't have we could have had like x squared plus 3x minus 8, right? We could have had another term that had like a regular x. In that case, that's when you use the quadratic formula, right? And you could use the quadratic formula even here, but there's a way easier way. If you just have x squared and no x, which is what we have here, what do you do? Well, it's way easier. You just go step one, just get the x squared alone. So the first step is just get that x squared alone. So I'm going to add the 8, to both sides. This is going to be an easier method. These are going to be a lot easier. So then we'll get x squared is 8 like that. So just get that x squared alone. And then step 2, you're going to put a root and a plus or minus root over the two sides. What am I talking about? Let me show you. So we're going to go like this. We're going to go root, but you got to put plus or minus. I'll explain why in a second, but you got to put plus or minus on the other side like that. And why? Because the rooting cancels the squaring, doesn't it? What do you mean rooting cancels squaring? Well, remember it's a 2-for-1 deal. Remember square roots? This square root here, this square root of x squared. Think about what that is for a second. X squared means 2x's. And what do square roots always do? 2-for-1 deal. So 2x's in sends what? 1x out. They're gone. It just makes it regular x, doesn't it? You don't have to show all that. You can just go cancel regular x. But I wanted to show you the reason why, right? Math should make sense and be reasonable and logical. So it's a 2-for-1. Square roots are a 2-for-1 deal. 2x's in, 1 out. That's why a root is the opposite of a second power. That's why they cancel each other out. Okay, so what happens on the other side? Plus or minus. Now, how do you break down that 8? Remember what we do with numbers? We break it up. We say, well, it's 2 times 4, and that's 2 times 2. So that 8 is 2, 2, 2, right? You break down that 8, 2 times 4, and 4 is 2 times 2. And then remember what a square root does? 2-for-1 deal, right? So 2 2's inside sends 1 2 outside, and they're gone. It's like you're shopping at Target. You see a sign. Things are on sale today, 2-for-1. 2 2's inside sends 1 out of the store. You go out of the store. They're gone. So what does x equal? Plus or minus. 1 2 is on the outside. The other 2 has to stay on the inside because there's not 2 of them. So it's plus or minus 2 root 2. Now, those are 2 separate answers, aren't they? They're plus 2 root 2 or minus. That's what the plus or minus means. There's 2 options. Huh? Shorthand notation for 2 answers. You can totally type your answers in that way. Come back here. Now, they want the lower one first. They want the negative first and then the positive. You don't have to put positive on that one. How do I know? It says right here, x1 is lower than x2. X1's got to be the lower one. Or you could just figure that out in your calculator. If you take your calculator, this will come, I think it's 2.828, if I remember right. Let me double check. Yeah, 2.828. And that'd be negative 2.828 and regular 2.828. You can do it either way. You can put in the decimal, negative 2.8 and positive, or you can put in the exact answer. What they're saying, exact expression, or 3 decimal places. Either one. And it'll take it. But the main thing to remember is when you have an x squared with no x, no regular x to the first power, just x squared, just get it alone and put the root on. Now, what you might wonder, why the plus or minus? That'd be a good question. Why plus or minus? Well, if you think about it, plus or minus is the case. Let me just show you it's true. Basically, bottom line with math, it's true. And here's how I can prove it's true. Think about x squared equals 9. What are the real answers to that? I mean, all fancy math rules aside, what could I put in there? What to the second power is 9? Well, 3 or negative 3, right? Negative 3 to the second power is 9, just like positive 3 to the second power is 9. Either one works. So the answers are really and truly 3 or negative 3. Well, that's why you put the plus or minus. You see it now? If you just put the root and you don't put plus or minus, you're only going to get the 3. But we know real, true life, it's plus or minus. So you have to remember that. So I made up a super dumb and dorky expression to help you remember this, because so many people forget this. So here it is. I apologize in advance. It's the best thing I have, but it's dorky. When you put a roof on the house, you got to go up and down the ladder. It's really dorky and dumb. But let me make sure that's making sense for you. When you put a roof, if you're going to put a new roof on your house, if you had a leak in your roof, you had to put a new roof on there, you'd have to get on a ladder, right? You can't just jump on the roof. You have to get on a ladder, go up and down the ladder. So if you put a root, there's my root, sorry, it's dorky. But if you put a root on both sides, you've got, what's the up or down? Plus or minus, up and down. So my point is, when you put a root on both sides of the equation, which you need to do to get rid of that 2 power, right? When you put a root on both sides of the equation, you've got to go up and down, plus or minus. You've got to put plus or minus on the other side. I started saying that, more as dorky as it is, more people started remembering. You've got to remember, you're going to be doing a ton of this. When you put the root on both sides, you can't just do the root. You got to do plus or minus. When you put a roof in your house, you got to go up and down the ladder. Just last night, my daughter was talking about, both my son and my daughter were home from tutoring other people in mathematics around town. And one of them said, yeah, I do say dad's sayings every now and then. I would just tell him, that young gal I was tutoring, up and down the ladder, up and down the ladder, up and down the ladder. So it made me happy as dad to hear my kids, much as they like to kid me, they are following that. So up and down the ladder, remember that, up and down the ladder when you put a roof on the house. There we go.